Welcome to Success Weekly with James Tharris, a weekly dose of thought-provoking ideas and helpful tips on improving your mindset. And now, here's your host, James Tharris.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Success Weekly. I'm James Tharris, your host for today. As you know, if you've been listening to my podcast for any length of time, we are always discussing elements of success, how can you become more successful, how you retain your success, and of course some of the pitfalls to avoid to keep from experiencing more success. So today we're going to talk about a subject that I recently had the opportunity to speak with our leadership team group about, and that's the subject of motivation. See, in order to become successful, you have to learn to be motivated. In fact, all success begins with motivation. So we can have great ideas to do things, but until we get the motivation to actually put some action behind them and make them a reality, not much happens. And I always like to tell this little story that everybody I think can relate to. And it's like this. Have you ever caught yourself laying in bed in the morning, needing to go to the restroom, but your stomach starts to tell you it's time to get up and go, but we don't get up and go. We lay there and sometimes even fall back to sleep and hopefully wake up a little bit later, and then we go to the restroom. Have you ever had that experience? Well, I'm sure that you have. I've had that experience, and sometimes we're just not motivated to get up and go, but eventually what happens is our stomach gets to the point where it says, hey, you better start moving here or we're going to have a little mess here to clean up. So that becomes motivation to us to then get up and go to the restroom. So if it works like that with having to use the restroom in the morning, you have to think about how other things in our lives work along that same way as well, because everything really happens with motivation. And so how do you get motivated? How do you get more motivation in your life, especially when you're not motivated? Well, there are a number of methods to doing this, but really it comes down to a couple of things, very key, simple things. And number one is having a goal. If you have a goal, you've probably heard it said many, many times that goals are so important, and it's absolutely true. If we don't have anything that we're doing and working towards, we don't get much done. So as another example, have you ever caught yourself planning for a vacation, and let's say the vacation is like six weeks out or even 6 months out, and this vacation is very important to you. You can't wait to get to it, but there's a little time between now and then. And so you go back to work and you do your normal things, and sometimes you get your work done and sometimes you don't get your work done. And maybe the work we're talking about is getting your house cleaned up or getting laundry done or things like this, or getting the yard cleaned up, and you get a little bit done over the course. Let's say it's a 6-week period of time. You get a little bit of work done over the course of the 6 weeks. When it gets to be about 2 days before that vacation, how much more work do you get done and cram into that last 48 hours? Well, if you're like most people, and if you're like me, you get a heck of a lot more crammed into that last little 48 hours, and really into that last maybe 8 hours before you leave for vacation. And that's because you're motivated. You're motivated towards a goal, which is going on vacation. And you've got to make sure you've got all your ducks in a row and all your I's crossed and T's dotted. I think it's the other way around, if you know what I mean, but it doesn't matter. It's the same thing, the T's crossed and I's dotted. You get all of these things done at the very last minute because now you're highly motivated. And so if you can learn to tap into things like this, you can continue to be motivated and stay motivated and get remotivated when you're not very motivated. So I'm a very self-motivated person because I'm an entrepreneurial type of a person. So I've owned businesses most of my life, going way back to my childhood when I owned my first lemonade stand and opened it for business. I was motivated to get up early and create the sign and figure out how I was going to create the lemonade and produce it in the jug and get the cups out, and how much I was going to charge for each of the cups, and then the motivation to stand behind my little homemade booth, which I believe at the time was like an old refrigerator box that I found and turned into a little lemonade stand and cut a little hole in it, and where I sat behind and served lemonade to people. And I don't remember how successful I was with selling it, but at least I was somewhat successful because I did it more than once. So that took a lot of motivation for me to give up my playtime. And in fact, I made that my playtime. That's another way to get motivated, is to kind of blur the lines a little bit between work and play. And as often as I can do that, I try to do that. So that's where, having a passion for what it is you love to do in life comes into play. So for me, I teach martial arts for a living, but that's only one part of that business. Teaching martial arts, the physical side of it, is only one part. I get as motivated about that part as I do any other part, but the fact that I get to play karate a little bit, like I did when I was 7 or 8 years old, running around the backyard with my brother and my sisters and my neighborhood friends and things, and just having these fake fights that we used to put on in the backyard, that was a lot of fun. So I've found ways to do that and turn that into a profession, which is teaching martial arts. Now, I don't quite have that same, I don't approach it from that same thought process of having these fake fights and things, but I've learned to blur the lines between what I do for a living and what I do for fun, and I've learned to enjoy my work. So for me, I'm intrinsically motivated to keep doing this, and I look forward to getting up every morning and getting back at it. Then there's the marketing of the business, which is a completely separate business as well. And I've learned to be motivated there because it's very exciting for me, it's kind of like going fishing. People that really enjoy fishing can probably relate to this, that you get up early in the morning and you're motivated to get up earlier than you normally would, and you've got to get your bait together and all of your tackle box items together and your rod and reel, and you make sure that the sinkers are on there and the bobber and the hooks there, and you've got everything else that you need. And of course your drinks and food for the day, and you pack it all up and you put it in the car and drive out to the lake and put those things on the boat. And then you go out and you cast your line in the water. And so what are you hoping to do when you cast your line in the water? Well, you're hoping to get a nibble or get a little bite. And then hopefully you snag one and reel it in. That's basically all marketing is if you can look at it as like fishing, except we're fishing for human beings in this case, fishing for new students, people that are interested in what we have to offer, people that are interested in becoming part of our organization. And so for me, I look at marketing kind of like going fishing. So again, I've learned to blur the lines between work and play. I love to go fishing, but I also love to market. But if I didn't view my marketing activities as fishing and looked at it as a tedious task that I have to go out and shake hands and meet people and put ads out and create ads and write emails and send people emails and create Facebook postings and whatnot, that might all become work in my mind, and I might not enjoy it as well. So for me, learning to stay motivated is learning to blur those lines between work and play. And that's a very big, powerful thing, I think, that you can do. You can learn how to turn your workouts in the morning, for instance, into play of sorts. So maybe you've gone to the gym and you don't like doing bench presses and squats, and just isn't for you. Maybe try doing the spin classes, and you might find it's kind of similar to riding your bicycle. And so it's kind of like learning to blur the lines a little bit. Maybe you do that and you try it and you find out that, hey, I don't really enjoy these spin classes because I'm really spinning my wheels and not going anywhere. I'm just kind of, I feel like I'm stuck in a rut, and maybe so maybe for you the spin classes aren't going to do it. I know for me they wouldn't. So for me, my exercise in the morning oftentimes is walking or riding a bicycle. I love the variety of riding a bicycle out in nature and seeing trees go by and hearing the birds chirp and watching the squirrels play and all of these things. So for me, I just love nature, and bicycling gets me exercise, or walking on days that I can't bicycle because it's the weather. I can still walk usually. I get to be out in nature and enjoy my exercise. So I'm intrinsically motivated to get up and do those things much more than I am to get up and go pump iron at a gym. For some people that works, but for me it's not as exciting, and so I will do those things as well, and I will go into the gym for maybe 6 months or a year, or sometimes even as long as 2 years, and I will pump weights, and I'll jump on the elliptical machine and use that time to listen to Tony Robbins or Jim Rohn or one of the people that I listen to. And get motivated in the morning while I'm working out, and then of course I'll sit in the sauna and I'll enjoy the swimming pool as well. But after a while, I get bored and I lose my motivation to go and do that. So I have to have a little bit of variety. And so currently what I'm doing, because I live in Florida now, it's the nice weather all year round, which is the primary reason I moved here, is I am able to go out and bike, and I'm able to go out and run or walk. I have a pool in the backyard. I'm able to swim now year round. I can go walking on the beach. I can go swimming in the ocean, and any other unlimited outdoor physical activities that you can think of. And so for me, I love to blur those lines between work and play. And that's what keeps me motivated. So that's one method of staying motivated. And so for me, it's kind of my reason why I do things. The reason why I still train in martial arts after all these years is because not only am I helping change people's lives, but I'm continually changing my own life, and at the same time I am staying in shape through my martial arts practice and the exercise. But it's also a mental exercise as well. So for me, it's a very holistic lifestyle for me, and that's what motivates me to keep going and keep doing it. Now, when I lose motivation in some areas in my life, I have to think to myself, well, how do I get remotivated? And this is where the other thing comes in. And it's basically this. We're motivated by two things only. We're either motivated by pain or we're motivated by pleasure. And sometimes it's the avoidance of one or the other, or the pursuit of one or the other. And you might think to yourself, well, I'd never want to pursue pain. Well, maybe not, but maybe if you're looking to get remotivated, pursuing pain might be exactly what you want to be doing. I know this about myself. I am much more motivated by fear of pain than I am of the joy of pleasure. So if I have the opportunity to go on a vacation, of course I'm motivated by that. But let's say I'm going to an amusement park and I've ridden all the rides that day, and I'm no longer motivated to ride any rides. I lose motivation and I pack it up and say, it's time to go home. So in order to get me excited about going back to that amusement park anytime soon, it's probably going to take a lot, because I've already done it, and I lose motivation very quickly. Like one trip once a year or every 6 months is probably adequate for me. I really can't see myself going much more often than that to a theme park and riding roller coasters and all these kind of rides, not at my age anyway. So for me, that's not going to do it. That's maybe the pursuit of pleasure. But if I know that I'm going to step on the scale and I'm going to see an extra 5 pounds pop on there, or 10 pounds pop on there, that's painful to me. I get to the point, if I'm over 170 pounds, I feel like I'm fat. In fact, to be honest, if I'm over 165, I feel like I'm fat. And I know some of you are listening to this and laughing and thinking, wow, that's insane. But you see, I've created this number for myself, and this look, if I see myself in a picture and I see a little turkey neck beginning to form, that's painful for me. So that's what gets me remotivated to want to get into action with my eating habits and my exercise habits, increasing certain things or avoiding other things. I'm motivated at dinner to have dessert. Of course, I love sweet things in dessert. And of course, if I wasn't going to gain weight, if there was some way I could survive on Reese's cups, my goodness, I'd have them probably with every breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And in some cases, they would be breakfast, lunch, or dinner. But I know that if I eat too many of those things, it's going to show on the scale. And therefore, that's me avoiding pain instead of enjoying the pleasure of tasting the Reese's cups or the Almond Joys or the Twix bars or the ice cream or the Greek pastries that I can get here in town. The joy of that is not enough to me to go ahead and do that on a regular basis. Now, I enjoy them as a reward at the end of my week. So I call my Saturday is my cheat day, or what we call it sometimes fatter day, because I'll allow myself to eat the things that make you fat. But there's really a limit to how much weight one can gain in one day by having some sweets. So I'll usually reserve that for Saturday. The rest of the week, though, I'm on my A game, and I'm eating right, and I'm exercising right, and doing all the right things. And my reward, if I do well during the week, is I get that cheat day or my fatter day at the end of the week. And so for me, that's motivational. Having that Saturday to look forward to, that I know that I can just eat whatever the heck I want to eat and not have to worry about it, that's motivating to me. So the pain of looking at the scale, though, is more motivating to me, and that's what gets me through really those other 5 to 6 days of the week to get me out of bed and into action and exercising, and also watching my diet as well, making sure that I'm making a habit out of eating right and not just doing it for a short period of time and then stopping it like a regular diet would dictate. So no, I like to make sure that I just make a habit out of avoiding things like bread and sugar as two of the biggest things, and not too much alcohol. I might have a glass, maybe 2 glasses of red wine in the evening, and that's about it. And sometimes I'll go the evening without having any wine or beer or anything else. So one glass of wine or beer, or maybe 2 at tops, or 1.5. That's about my max throughout the week. And on Saturday I might have a 3rd glass or a third can of beer, something like that. But that's not every single weekend, just when I feel like it. So for me, that works for my motivation. So you have to find the 2 things that work for you. You have to find out your reason why. Why do you do things? Why is it you want to go on a diet and lose weight? What's that going to do for your confidence level, and what's that going to do for you overall? Are you trying to do it for a short-term thing to get ready for the beach, or are you trying to do this as a lifestyle so you can fit into your clothes better, so you don't have to go out and buy the next half size or bigger size and refurbish your entire wardrobe? That might be your pain and the reason why you keep doing things. The other thing is learning how to blur the lines between work and play, and then of course setting yourself up for some rewards when you stay on track for a certain period of time. So if it's not your diet and exercise program, it might be saving money. Every time you successfully save $100, maybe you're going to splurge on a candy bar. And you say to yourself, and you make sure that you follow through with it, that you don't get to eat a candy bar until that $100 is saved, and then out of the next money that comes in, you're not going to take it out of that $100. You're going to take it out of the next bit of money that comes in. You're going to spend $2 on a candy bar, and you're going to enjoy it and not feel guilty about it. See, that's what we're talking about here. And that's really the key to staying motivated, guys, is finding things like that and putting yourself in positions where there could be some pain. So for example, if it's like making a bet with somebody. If I don't do this, I'm going to wear this pink t-shirt. And I've never worn a pink t-shirt, guys. I have nothing against it, but I have a little phobia with wearing a pink t-shirt. So maybe for me, I tell all my friends I'm going to lose 10 pounds within the next 30 days or 60 days. Try to find a realistic time frame. And if it doesn't happen, I promise you I'm going to wear this pink shirt for the next 3 Mondays, and the pink shirt that says, girly man or something like that on it. Something that would be so painful to me that I couldn't imagine having to do it. See, if I put that in front of myself, for me, that would be motivating. There's a potential of failing and a potential of this pain of being embarrassed. And so that's what I would have to do to keep myself motivated, or to even get motivated sometimes. So sometimes you just have to proclaim your goals to people that will support you, but at the same time, you give them permission to kick you behind when you fall off of your goals. And guys, that's the secret to being motivated. If you're not motivated right now, you've got to look around you and you've got to see why it is. Maybe there's just you don't have any goals or dreams set, and that will be the starting point for you. So remember, a goal and a dream are similar, but a goal is basically a dream with a deadline attached to it. You've got to give yourself some type of deadline in order for you to really take action on certain goals. And so losing weight, you've got to have a deadline for that. Getting into shape, you've got to have a deadline for that. But then there's, of course, the motivation to maintain your shape, being in shape, or maintain your fitness level, maintain your ideal weight. That's where the other things are going to come in. And you've got to put these pain points in your mind, and you've got to figure out what they are. What's the weight for you? For example, what's the weight for you that you think, wow, I'm overweight at this particular point? If you don't know what that is, you need to discover that particular pain point. If it's your fitness level, you've got to figure out a way to kind of monetize that for yourself, to figure out, okay, how do I know when do I feel the pain of being out of shape? Maybe it's I can't run a flight of steps without being out of breath. Maybe that's your method. For me, it's being able to practice my martial arts and be just a little bit ahead of my students. If my student starts to get ahead of me with their stamina and their ability to throw kicks and hit the bag and make the proper sound with the power behind it, well, then I know I'm falling off in my practice and I need to get back in there and stay just a little bit ahead of my students. So for me, that's what I found out that works for me. You've got to find that out in your life, and you've got to know when you're approaching that pain point and say, wow, let's say, for example, I told you if I'm past 165, I feel like I'm fat. And I'm there. I'm kind of what I feel like I'm fat. I'm right about 168, 170, right in that particular point right now, trying to get back down to 160. But every year that I get older, I'm 48 now, and 48 and a half for those of you counting. And it seems to have gotten harder. I've done the very same things that I've always done with my diet and exercise, and somehow I'm just not getting the same kinds of results. So it's easy for me to look in the mirror and say, wow, this is not right. And I could say, well, I'm 48 years old. This is what I'm going to expect. I can't expect any more than this. But for me, that doesn't work. I still get very frustrated. I look at myself in the mirror, and I will physically point my finger at myself in the mirror and say, I'm disappointed in you. You've let yourself gain some weight. Let's get busy and let's do something about this. And usually what I do to fix that, and I'm going to talk about this in another podcast upcoming, is I change my morning routine. I change what I'm doing. I constantly change my workout routine or my eating regimen so that I'm constantly shocking my body and making it adapt to it. Because if our bodies adapt, they can adapt to running and they can adapt to lifting weights, and that's why you add more weight, or you run faster, or you run with more intensity for a short period of time, or you go for a longer distance, or you completely change up the exercise by, instead of running, you go bicycling, or you do rowing or something else. You do aerobics class, or you do something to shock your system and change it so that your body's continually adapting to new things. And that's one of the keys to continually getting better results. So anyway, that's my podcast for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. If you are having trouble getting motivated, please let me know. I'll do the best that I can to help give you some additional advice and maybe personalize it for your unique situation. I'd love to know maybe what you're doing to stay motivated. What do you do when you fall into a slump or a rut to get yourself out of that slump or rut? And maybe that's different than what I've told you here. I would love to know what that is, because it may be something that I use in the future and I can share with our listeners to help them in another episode. So until next week, guys, this is James Theris saying be successful.
That's all for this week. Tune in next week for another episode of Success Weekly. Do you have an idea you'd like James to talk about in an upcoming episode? Post your comments and be sure to share this podcast with friends.